What is going on, guys? Today I bring you round 6 of Open Figueira de Foz, and so far the tournament has been going pretty well. So far, only lost to an international master from India, so I was feeling really good. In this round, I got paired up against Jürgen Röttgen. I probably mispronounced that really bad, but yeah, he was older gentleman, a German player, and his elo is 1964, so almost 300 points higher than me. But I was feeling confident and I liked my chances. So I had the white pieces. I started the game with e4. My opponent went c5, knight f3, e6, and now d3. So I tried the King's Indian attack again. I saw that he played the c5 e6 Sicilians, but I didn't see any game against the King's Indian attack, so I just tried to prepare my lines. He played d5, which is the version that I like to play the most. It's the more main line-ish. Knight bd2 by me, knight c6, g3, and here my opponent plays bishop d6, which goes into a setup that I know it exists. It's like a sideline setup, but it's very dangerous as well if white doesn't know what he's doing. And I didn't really know my lines here. I didn't really look at this setup, but I was like, okay, let's just try to figure it out on the board. I went queen e2, which yeah, the computer doesn't like that much, but in general, in this opening, the computer always prefers black because of the space advantage. So it doesn't matter much. My opponent goes knight g on e7, which is this setup that it's quite a good setup to avoid getting hit by e5. Now e5 wouldn't make any sense because of knight g6, and the pawn would be hanging. So yeah, you have to play it a bit different. I played bishop g2. You went bishop c7, and yeah, bishop c7. I don't understand that. It probably makes a lot of sense for this setup. I don't know, but I'm sure that it is part of the setup. I just castled, my opponent castled, and here I played rook e1. So far I was just trying to make principled moves and very logical ones. I was playing rather fast. He was also playing rather fast. Here my opponent went to b6, so he's going for the bishop on b7. I went a knight f1, trying to reroute the knight for the kingside attack. He went bishop e7. I went h4 here, and yeah, my idea is simple. I just want to play knight h2, maybe h5. If he lets me play h6, I play h6. If not, I can play king h1, rook g1, try to g4, try to just open up the king side, maybe sacrifice a bishop in the long run. And yeah, it's a pretty fun setup to play, honestly. I love the King's Indian attack. But here my opponent plays knight d4, which is a very committal move and looks kind of weird. In yeah, I wasn't really expecting this move. I just took the knight, of course. What else will I do? Now my opponent has double pawns, although he has the semi-open c file to put pressure on c2. So yeah, it's a double-edged sword, I guess. Here I just played bishop g5 with a simple threat of taking on e7 and then taking on d5, winning a pawn. So here I was expecting my opponent to, I don't know, maybe take here on e4, release the tension. If he played f6, I would be kind of happy about that. I would probably play something like bishop back to d2, and this king side will start becoming very weak in the long run with all these weaknesses here. Bishop d takes on e4 here. I would just probably take on e7, takes, and then I would take on e4. And this position, it is a little bit boring for the moment. He traded all the pieces, but I'm putting pressure here. My knight will eventually come to e4 maybe or c4, and yeah, it's still a interesting position in my opinion. But in the game, after bishop g5, my opponent played h6, which um I was very shocked. I mean, the whole point of me playing bishop g5 was to take on e7. So if you're literally giving me like if you're giving me the opportunity, even like wasting time to kick my bishop, I mean, yeah, of course, I'm gonna take. I didn't understand. It just looks like I'm gonna win a pawn here. He takes the bishop back, and I just take on d5. And I'm like, I just won a pawn because this pawn on e6 is pinned. That's the whole point of the bishop g5 move. So I wasn't really sure. But my opponent, after a while, played e5, and I was like, yes, I didn't consider e5 in my calculation, but this can't work. I mean, this looks like it shouldn't work. And after some time thinking, I decided, wait a second, I can't just try to defend this pawn with c4. And yeah, now I'm just up a pawn, I think. My opponent looked really shocked after this. He looked frustrated because, of course, he blundered this. If my opponent decides to take en passant, I can just take back, and I'm threatening c4. And yeah, it's not really sure what my opponent is doing here. So yeah, it's a mistake by him for sure. He didn't play d takes en passant. He played bishop d6, and now I thought for a long while because um I knew that I had to be better here, just up a pawn, but my opponent is threatening to play f5, and even though he's down a pawn with f5, he can maybe push f4, start a kingside attack, maybe e4, blast through, although e4 doesn't look possible at the moment. But yeah, f5, f4, it starts becoming a little bit awkward with this bishop pointing at my king. So far, this bishop is blocked, really well blocked, but it can reroute. And here I couldn't really figure out what to do. I played queen h5, which I still can't really understand because queen h5 doesn't stop f5. My opponent can still play f5. I don't remember if my idea here was to play bishop h3 with pressure here. Although, yeah, my opponent can simply play like bishop c8 and the pawn is defended, or queen f6. So yeah, it doesn't do much. Or maybe my idea was to play f4, which that would be way more interesting. But I have to be honest with you guys, I don't really remember the idea of queen h5. I felt like I didn't really know what to do in this position. The computer points out the immediate f4 is good. Yeah, it makes sense. Now f5 is not on the cards, and if my opponent can't take here on f4 because of the pressure along the e file, if he has to play something like rook a e8 to defend e5, now I can play f5, and yeah, this position looks incredibly dangerous for black because now there's no longer f5. I can put a bishop on e4, maybe try to put the knight on e4 with knight d2, knight e4. I can start now playing something like queen h5, and yeah, this can get out of hand really quickly for black for sure. So f4 would have been a very, very strong move, which yeah, I didn't find during the game. So yeah, let's keep going. So in the game after queen h5, my opponent played queen d7, which um it kind of stops bishop h3 for the moment. So maybe after f5, my opponent saw bishop h3 and he didn't like it. And here I just played knight h2, try to develop the knight to a better square. But actually, I missed a pretty good move here. Yeah, I missed completely. Actually, it was my coach that pointed out during analysis of this game, which is the very nice move rook takes on e5, with the point that after bishop takes on e5, queen takes on e5. Okay, I sacrifice the exchange for a pawn, but I'm threatening to take this pawn on d4. There's not a way for black to defend this pawn, so let's follow the main line, or let's follow some logical continuation like rook a8, queen takes on d4, and okay, I'm down in exchange, but I have like a lot of pawns to compensate for being down the exchange. Actually, I'm up like 3 pawns, and there are like the pawns that I'm up are these pawns in the center, and yeah, I mean the chances of black defending this if I play well are really really low, because it's really hard to deal with these pawns moving up the board like this, and you have a bishop that's not playing at all. So yeah, um, I missed this completely. Also, I want to point out that after rook takes on e5, there's no g6. It looks like g6 wins a piece because my queen is attacked, can't keep protecting the rook, but I can always drop back to e2, so there's no problem. And if takes, we transpose with the inclusion of the move g6, of course. So let's go back. Yeah, in the game, I played knight h2, my opponent played f5, and here I played g4, trying to just create counterplay along the king side, not let him just roll me. And yeah, I felt like g4 was an interesting and strong move. My opponent played queen e8, trying to trade queens, which I can't really deny. I have to trade queens. Takes, and I take on f5. Rook takes on f5, and okay, we reach this sort of queenless middle game where I'm up a pawn, but my opponent is very active along the f file, and my pieces. Okay, this knight, mainly this knight, is very awkward, and this rook is still not developed. So uh, I'm up a pawn, but my opponent definitely has compensation. Here I spent a long time because I was trying to figure out how to parry all my opponent's threats. My opponent is threatening the simple rook f8 to put pressure on f2. He's also threatening to maybe just play rook f4 to capture this pawn on h4. And yeah, it's not really simple on how to proceed here with white. I couldn't really figure out a plan. I burned a lot of time, like something like 20-25 minutes here. I already spent a long time before, so I didn't want to lose all my time here with still a lot of moves to reach move 40. We were only on move 21, so yeah, I decided to play rook e2 just to prophylactically defend the pawn on f2. um yeah, my opponent played rook f4, attacking the pawn on h4, and now my idea was to play rook e4, uh, which the computer kind of likes. And now the point is that if my opponent plays rook f8, I can just take here. And this is what happened in the game. Um, Now, okay, my pawn is hanging on h4, which I can't really defend, but I got rid of the pressure along the f-file. Now is no longer threatening the pawn on f2, and now I can, try to consolidate my position and reroute the knight, which, yeah, it's a good plan. I found a really good plan here. Knight f1 going to g3 and maybe e4. My opponent takes the pawn, of course. Now we have equal material. I play knight g3. My opponent plays bishop c8. And here I play rook e1, which the computer absolutely hates. Feels like loses all the advantage, which is kind of impressive how one simple developing move can just ruin your position, apparently. Yeah, here the moves that I had to play were like 94, attacking this bishop. And the point is that if my opponent plays something like bishop c7, I can just roll the pawns down the board. And yeah, it's kind of hard to see how my opponent is going to stop all these pawns coming at him. Let's say a better move would probably be like bishop e7. Bishop e7 runs into d6, so maybe not bishop e7, but bishop f8 is actually the most accurate move. The computer still wants d6, which feels a bit loose. Yeah, it feels a bit loose. Something like bishop f5 here. B4 takes d7 here. Yeah, okay. This is I don't think I was gonna see this during the game, but yeah, some engine lines. But the point is that in all these variations, the computer wants me to play like a3, b4, c5, and just roll down the board, roll the pawns down the board. But yeah, I didn't really understand that you had to do this as fast as possible. A3 is also with the same idea, but yeah, I didn't really think that it was that important to be this fast. I just played rook e1, which to me made a lot of sense to just, you know, put the rook on a useful square, putting pressure on e5, and maybe next I can play knight e4. Um, but yeah, here my opponent played rook f4, and I could have gone knight e4, simply with the same idea of rolling the pawns down the board. But here in this variation, he has bishop b4, which he didn't have in the other variations. So I would have to move the rook again. So, okay, you see that the rook probably is misplaced here. But I actually played a3 in order to play knight e4 and then b4. So the bishop doesn't have this square. But now my opponent has bishop f5. So he consolidates. Now he no longer has problems with 94 because he can just take yeah, if I play like something like 94, he can just take, bishop takes, and now this I will never win this position because opposite color bishops. And I wasn't really happy about the fact that my opponent has this outside passed pawn. So yeah, I was definitely not looking to play this position for sure. So I just took the bishop with the knight. Yeah, I could have played a bishop e4, trying to lure my opponent into taking here. This would be amazing. I would probably be winning here. But yeah, after bishop e4, I knew that my opponent was not gonna take here on e4. He was gonna play something like bishop g4, and now it's tricky because my opponent might be threatening h5, h4, and yeah, this knight can actually become a target. So yeah, for me, all this game was a very difficult game to play. I didn't really understand what I should have done differently during the game, and even now looking at it, it's kind of a hard position for me to understand. So yeah, I just took the bishop, rook takes, and now we get this opposite call or bishop endgame, which yeah, it's probably a draw. I tried something with b4, trying to expand here, but my opponent just retreats the rook to f7. I play rook b1. At this point, we were mostly I was in time trouble. I think my opponent had more time than me for sure. Uh, yeah, we are still on move 31, so there's still 9 moves to make for time control. So yeah, I was feeling a bit of pressure to reach time control here. My opponent here plays rook c7, putting the rook on a very useful square. And yeah, here I just couldn't figure out what I should do, so I just pushed the pawn, which is not the right idea. I should have, improved my pieces as fast as I could with something like bishop e4, probably trying to play bishop f5, bishop e6, and then bring the king in. But yeah, I just continued moving pawns here with a4, which is a little bit of a waste of time. Now my opponent brings his king, and I try to activate my bishop, bishop h3, king f6, king g2. e4 is actually still a very big threat, which, yeah, would leave my opponent in a very, very pleasant position. But thankfully, my opponent missed this idea. He played g6, which allows me to play something like king f3 to stop e4. So play bishop e6. There's no longer e4. My opponent keeps rolling the pawns down the board, which, yeah, now if you look at this, it definitely looks like just black is taking over the game. I have no counterplay. These pawns are trying to queen, and it's really hard to stop them. I was feeling a lot of pressure here, and I just knew that I was probably worse here, and it would be actually quite a good result now to draw the game. Was no longer thinking about winning. Also, my rook is kind of stuck defending this b4 pawn. So after g5, I just pushed b5 in order to, free my rook to try to stop these pawns. My opponent plays g4 check, and here I play king e2, which is apparently a big mistake because it allowed king g5 coming into the position. Yeah, very dangerous. But yeah, I didn't play king e4 because it felt like in the future this king might just be stuck and checkmated, because now like this king can't move. So yeah, I felt like this would end up bad for me, so I just played king e2. Now my opponent played rook g7. I played rook g 1, stopping any g3s. And also, if my opponent plays h4, I always have rook takes, because we have the bishop and the rook looking at this pawn. So yeah, I felt like, okay, I was finding the correct defense. Here, my opponent plays bishop e4. I play bishop c8. My opponent plays bishop d6, and we reach time control, so we get a bonus 30 minutes on the clock. So I was relieved that, okay, now we have time, and I will probably have really good chances to hold this position. Indeed, it is a drawn position. Here I play bishop back to e6, and yeah, my opponent was, looking a little bit, you know, um, he was looking a little bit annoyed at the position. He played bishop b4, and I was like, I mean, if he wants a draw, I'll happily take a draw. As I said before, I played bishop c8, offering the repetition, and my opponent offered the draw here, so I took the draw. And actually, later on, he said that he was gonna try this plan of playing like something like bishop f8 and rerouting this king to come into the position. And when he told me this, I was like, that is a really good plan. Like, why didn't you go for that? And I was like, and he was like, I don't think it works. I mean, damn, bro. Like, I would have tried this for sure. I mean, this looks scary because I don't see really a way to stop this king from coming and attacking a4, and maybe another exercise for another day. But yeah, that's all for today. Pretty pretty weird game, honestly. Very complicated position. And yeah, the draw was a good result for me. At the end of the day, I've been this tournament I always played against higher rated opponents, so I was doing phenomenal performance here, and I was very, very happy with the tournament so far. It felt like I couldn't really lose. So yeah, I was very happy. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye. Take care.